SvelteKit and Storyblok, a powerful duo, was going to be the title of the talk, but I did a Cassie Evans here and decided to not talk about that. So, as Phil said, I work for Storyblok, and the modern way to content. If you're interested, just check out storyblok.com. That's Storyblok with a K. If you've heard any modern podcasts lately, you'd hear that stressed a lot. Storyblok with a K. Wow, this looks terrible on this screen. We've got lots of framework integrations if you're interested in using Storyblok. We've got the wow feature of Storyblok. If you want to check it out, come see me later on. We've got a visual editor, which basically just allows your content editing teams just to move stuff around without getting developers involved. Anyway, you've heard me say Svelte and SvelteKit a lot. Who knows what Svelte and SvelteKit is? Oh, good. So this is going to be a primer. So for anyone else who's interested, Svelte is a JavaScript framework. I'll come on to that in a bit. Icebreakers. So as Phil's just said, just knocked all that out there, really. I'm a dad. That's not my family for obvious OPSEC reasons, but hopefully you get the idea. I'm a cat dad as well, so you can show you pictures of my cats. I've also got my holiday slides lined up as well, so I'm not sure how much we can get through in 15 minutes, but we'll take a look. This is Boris, Leo, and Darcy, and they're adorable. We also got two new ones, which is Barney and Jade, and you just can't see them at all, but they are adorable. I've got all the pictures on my phone. I'll happily show you them. And this one was on my shoulder while I was putting the slides together on the weekend. All right, so what is Svelte? Sorry, I wasn't going to leave. I was just getting my water. Right. So it's a component framework. So this means you write declarative, not imperative code. Thanks, Chris, for that great talk this morning on that. We'll come on to that in a bit. There's no virtual DOM with Svelte, so that means there's no diffing. What gets shipped to the browser is compiled HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the holy trinity of the web. And it's older than you might think. V1 was released in 2016. There is an awesome talk from the creator of Svelte, Rich Harris, which is titled Rethinking Reactivity. And I suggest you go take a look at that if you want to know more about that. We'll be taking a look at reactivity in a bit. But first, what is a framework? Hoping everyone knows what a framework is. Good. So this allows you to write declarative code. Thanks for the primer on this, Chris, wherever you are. Sorry, not Chris, Jeremy. Look, he's looking so confused. I turned around and I was like, oh no, it's Jeremy. So, imperative versus declarative code. Jeremy went over all this morning, but we're going to look at it again. So we've got a very imaginatively named count button here. And let's go back into full screen. Open up the dev tools. Why is it going to full screen? Don't know. Yeah, so we want to have our count in a variable. And from what Jeremy was saying, we need to be very specific. So we need to tell the browser we want to create a button, and we want the text in that button to be clicks and our variable. And we also need to have an event listener for that. And we're just going to return, increment our clicks count from there. And we're going to return that. So declaratively, in Svelte, it looks like this. So we'll come on to this bit soon. But it's a lot more concise, smaller. And in here, we're just defining our variable. And then we're just going to increment with the onClick directive here and do an inline increment of that variable. I've done the same in React, just because I'm going to do some comparisons at the very start, and then we're going to forget React exists, and I'm hoping you'll feel the same. That was terrible, Scott. Anyway, so we do the same thing in React. We use state, I use state hook, and then we're going to inline increment our, not inline, sorry, we're using the use state here to increment this. You might notice this isn't in parentheses in the return there. That's because I wanted to put it onto one line. just so you can see that you can sort of make it concise still, but that's the same one-liner with Svelte here. So I'm hoping you can tell from that you write less code with Svelte as you would other frameworks. I'm not picking on React, but I made this slide, so let's do that. So generally, you write less code. I've heard people say around 40%. It doesn't look like that here. And I also hear that 99% of statistics are made up on the spot as well. So hat tip to Chris Ellis for that stat. So let's take a quick look at some Svelte basics. And sorry, you'll also notice as well, my slides are devoid of any flair and style like all of the other slides. So I do apologise. I'm just hoping to get the point across rather than impress you with fancy slides. So Svelte is a HTML superset. I'll come on to that in a bit. Basically, this means anything which is valid HTML in the HTML spec, you can use in Svelte. We'll take a look at styling. We'll take a look at reactivity and component props. Towards the end of the lightning talk, we'll come on to that. And we'll do some quick logic bits as well. So it's a HTML superset, so anything in HTML tags will get rendered out. This is the basic anatomy of a Svelte file. So you might have seen from the earlier examples, you've got a script tag at the top, you put any JavaScript you need in there, have your markup and your style tags at the bottom. So with styling in Svelte, all of your components have their styles scoped to that specific component. Same with the page, and then obviously you'd have your global styles imported, higher up in the render tree, as it were. Okay, so these are all given a unique hash when they're compiled and sent to the browser. Reactivity in Svelte. So, like I said, that's a great talk from Rich. I'd suggest you go and check it out, but this is when you want to have a variable react when another one is changed. So we do that in Svelte with this $:. So we're saying we're declaring our variable here is doubled, and then we're incrementing that count by 2 for whatever's in our count variable there. Just making a handle click function there. I'm going to put it into the button, and then each time this increments up, we're going to display that doubled count in our p tag just to say how many times it's clicked. Lots of buttons in today's event. So you might be thinking, what is this, $:? And it's actually valid JavaScript. So the Svelte compiler needs to process valid JavaScript. And this is a relatively unknown feature of JavaScript. So me, before I was into web development, I used to do VBA development, and I saw this label used quite widely in there. But it's not used in JavaScript. So the Svelte core team decided to co-opt this and use it in Svelte for reactivity. So are there any gotchas with this? And there are. You can't use array mutations. So we're not going to push onto our array here. With Svelte, you need to keep in mind that you need to do this sort of thing on assignment. So if you're going to have anything reactive, you just need to keep in mind that you need to assign to that rather than mutate it. And then you'll be all happy days with that. Let's go through the logic or sort of rendering conditional stuff quickly. So if, else, each, and await. You have the curly boys. Thanks for that, Cassie, if you're here. Where you have your opening tag, you do any of your logic in there. You close it with curly brace closing tag, and you do some continuation stuff in there as well. So if you have our if, our if block, so we are seeing someone's logged in here, and we can use the if block here just to render either one. So with Svelte, it doesn't hide them. It just doesn't render the elements all for either one of these if they're logged in or not. So with our each statement here, we could just continue our block rather than have two separate if blocks. So I hope you get the idea of how you would use that with if and else. Each, I mean, the most used logic, I use it all the time. So you just have, you get your array or array-like object, and then for each speaker in our speakers list here, we're just going to render out a list item for that, and then put in the speaker name as well. So you notice that there's this comma I. This is just so you can have you can show an increment. You could also do have like a key at each block in Svelte, where you just put it into some round boys, just some parenthesis, and then speaker name would be not a great key, but I'm just doing that for illustration on how you would use a key. We have a wait block. So this is for if you want to have information load onto the page after the page is loaded. So in this, you can see we're going to the Svelte tutorial to get a random number from our endpoint. This will, so the page would be loaded, would have our button, and then we're going to assign this promise to this variable, and then we're going to await that. And once that resolves, or sorry, before it resolves, we're going to say we're waiting. When it resolves, we can assign that to a variable, in this case number, and then we're just going to render that out, or we're going to have an error. Okay, what is SvelteKit? So the timer's not going, I'm not sure how we do for time. But let's talk about SvelteKit. SvelteKit is, you get all your modern web development practices, tools out the box. It's got a powerful router, server-side and client-side support. They're configurable. I think you get server-side by default, but you can have just client-side with some configuration flags. You get page preloading, so if you hover over a link and that page has data to load, it will go off and call that data, load it up before, or it will seem like it's loaded before the link is clicked. And hot module reloading thanks to Vite. And yes, I pronounce it Vite. It's an accessibility-first framework. So Rich Harris did a talk on this. If you want to take a quick picture of this from Jeff Rich, it's not your catch-all. It's not going to save you for all of your accessibility, but there's a great post from Jeff Rich on this, and that goes over in great detail. Also, Rich's talk as well about it. Okay, so SvelteKit's a meta framework. So you could think of Next.js uses React. So you could think of it as, I'll put it down here. So, SvelteKit is to Svelte as Next.js is to React, and what Vue is to Nuxt. So it's a meta framework, so we're just building on top of what's already there for Svelte. So I want to talk about data loading in Svelte. So understanding the magic behind data loading in Svelte. So I've put it as this because I had a workshop at the end of March where I had the curse of knowledge. So the curse of knowledge is where you're talking to someone as if they understand implicitly what you mean, and it's not that. So I had to go into a lot of detail on how you would load data. So I'm hoping the information I've gone through here could lead up to this, but first we need to talk about routing in SvelteKit. So how you do routing in SvelteKit post V1. So V1 of SvelteKit was released in December last year. If you want an index page, you just go into your routes folder, create an index page. If you want an about page, you just have an about.svelte page. This changed from, I think it was around August. People got mad about this. There was this plus notation, which was added to files. Now, this is really, I think it's really good. So it allows you to separate your concerns with your data from your sort of view layer, as it were. But yeah, so if you'd want to have an about page, you don't call it about.svelte anymore. You need to create a folder for that. And then all of your information is contained within that folder. So if you wanted to load any data, you'd use the pluspage.ts file, or if you wanted to load that data from the server, it'd be a pluspage.server.ts file. Now, I say pluspage, plus server a lot, so excuse me if I get a bit tongue-tied around them, but there are quite a few of these plus files here. So I think that's covered all of them here. And I've given a brief summary. You can take a picture, or you could just go to scottspence.com, and there's a lengthy blog post on that, detailing those and how to use them. So I mentioned component props as part of Svelte. So I mentioned it, I'm sort of bringing it up in the SvelteKit side of things, is because I want to talk about, this stuff here. Export let, what? This is just telling this greeting component that there's going to be a prop coming into this file. And it's the name variable, it's default into world. I'm just going to render out that p tag. I'm going to consume it here in pluspage.svelte file and pass in my prop for that. So is everyone okay with export let for adding a prop to a component? Yeah? Okay. When I first saw this, I was like, what? That doesn't seem right. So good, everyone's rolling with it. That's fantastic. So if I wanted to load some data, sorry, flitting between slides here, I'd add a pluspage.ts file. So this is just a contrived example, but in the load file here, this is going to return a data prop for the pluspage.svelte file. So in here, I'm just returning a title. This is some data. And I'm going to consume that with the data prop which is being passed in. So you could do this with both data, but also forms. So if you have server-side information you want to pass back into a form, you can have export let form, and then you can get any information off of that form prop as well. So in here, I'm just rendering out the title. And obviously, I'm going to use that in my Svelte page here. I'm going to use the dot notation to just get the title out of it. And that is sort of what you would get displayed on the page, but in a much nicer fashion. Okay, so I think I have, what's the word for it? Redeemed myself with explaining this concept. I hope everyone gets the idea. Just go back again here for the this load function. So pluspage.ts, if you want to get server-side information, you could do pluspage.server.ts, and that would be, no information from there would be available on the client. In this instance, this tile or this load data will be available on both the client and the server. That's it for me. I just want to say thank you. If you're interested in knowing anything more about SvelteKit, Svelte, or Storyblok, and using them as well, come and hit me up. I'm at the booth outside, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.